Hi guys, this is a video series about the line-out quality of all relevant load boxes on the market. We will find out answers to questions no one asked before, I hope, like does the connected speaker affect the line-out? Is there any latency? What about ground hum sensitivity? Why do IRs sound different by using another load box? And of course, we will try to find out which ones sound best and most accurate for recordings. So this also means that we will not check all features of each single load box. The focus is clearly the feature that all devices have in common, and that's the line out. The goal is to find out which devices work best for recordings in combination with third-party IRs. When talking about load boxes, I'm talking about reactive load boxes. Only these are able to realistically emulate the behavior of speakers. Simple load boxes, which are based off resistors only, are not part of this test because they do not sound and feel good enough. So let's see which ones we have. The flagships are the aux load box from Universal Audio and the Fryette Powerstation. Then we have the very popular Captor X from TwoNotes, the Suhr load box, the Ironman II from King, the Boss Tube Amp Expander, the RedSeven AmpCentral, and the Torpedo Live from TwoNotes. For the first test I will use a white noise signal. A white noise is a mix of all frequencies at the same volume level. It sounds like this, and the frequency spectrum looks like this. As you can see, it's nearly a flat line over all frequencies. That's the technical approach. In the upcoming videos, we will also use real guitar tracks to compare the tone results, and I will provide a video for each single device. As already said, our goal is to find out the load box with the best line out for recordings, but unfortunately that's not that simple. Luckily, I own an amp with a special line out. It's special because the line out sits not between the preamp and the power amp as usual. It is connected to the speaker out via a voltage divider. And that's great. So we can compare the signal before and after the load box and check if there's any gain or loss of frequencies. For this I will send a white noise signal into the return effects loop of my Blue Note tube amp and compare the line out signal of the load boxes with the line out signal of the amp. I will use two setups for each load box. First we have the signal chain for the amp line out. The signal goes from the DAW into the audio interface, then into the effects return loop of the amp to bypass any tone mod of the preamp. The speaker out is connected to the load box, while the line out of the amp goes back through the iBox into the audio interface and then back into the DAW. Next we have the signal chain for the line out of the load box. The signal goes from the DAW into the Apollo out, then into the effects return loop of the amp. The amp out is connected to the load box and the line out goes back through the iBox into the Apollo audio interface and then back into the DAW. I've also put a passive DI box into the signal chain to avoid ground hum, because unfortunately some load boxes are sensitive to ground hum. The DI box does nothing more than galvanically isolate the signals. By comparing both line out signals, we should be able to verify whether a load box changes the original amp tone. For this test, all load boxes are used in silent mode, means without a cabinet connected. Only the reactive load of the load box itself is used. First, let's test if the setup with the DI box alone works as expected. When sending white noise from the DAW over the DI box back to the DAW, there should be no difference in the frequency spectrum. So let's record the signal. And now let's compare the frequencies with that nice plugin from FabFilter. As you can see, there's no gain or loss of frequencies. The line is flat as a pancake, so the basic setup works fine so far. Now let's finally start with the comparison. For this I've already recorded 2 tracks of white noise for each load box. First we have the aux load box from Universal Audio. When we compare the line out of the amp with the line out of the load box, the resulting curve looks like this. That's pretty good, almost flat. There's a slight drop below 20 Hz and a hard high cut in the top end over 20 kHz. Neither matters because these frequencies are too low or too high to be heard. Let's continue with the Suhr reactive load. The fat white line is the resulting curve. There's a low cut which starts at around 180 Hz. At 60 Hz it's minus 3 dB. The range from 180 to 800 Hz is slightly tilted. The rest is pretty flat and looks good. So we only have some loss in the low end. Next we have the AmpCentral from RedSeven. The resulting curve is not what I would call a flat line. The low cut starts at around 500 Hz. At 60 Hz it's minus 3 dB and there's a little high cut of 1.5 dB starting at around 9 kHz. For the Torpedo Captor X we do a comparison for each mode, the low mode and the high mode. The low mode is for amps with high output. The naming can be misleading, but it is what it is. Let's analyze the curve. There's a heavy high cut at around 16 kHz. It's minus 2 dB at 20 kHz. The low cut starts at around 400 Hz. At 50 Hz it's minus 6 dB. The middle section is slightly tilted with a range of minus 1 dB. Here's the resulting curve for the high mode. The frequency spectrum for the frequencies above 400 Hz is identical, but the low cut is less compared to the low mode. At 50 Hz it's minus 4 dB. So it's better to use the high mode whenever possible. For the Fryette Powerstation we do a comparison for the most extreme modes, means flat flat and deep edge. Let's start with the flat flat mode. This looks pretty promising. There's a slight low cut starting at 30 Hz and there's also a high cut beginning at 12 kHz. The high cut is only minus 1.5 dB at 20 kHz, so that's almost nothing for guitars. The curve for the deep edge mode is almost identical to the flat flat mode, only the overall level is a bit higher. For the Boss Tube Amp Expander we also do a comparison for the most extreme modes, means low low and high high. Let's start with the low low mode. This looks pretty good. There's a high cut beginning at around 9 kHz. The high cut is only minus 2 dB at 20 kHz. So that's a bit more compared to the Fryette Powerstation. The slight low cut starts at 30 Hz and can be neglected. In the high mode there's no low cut but a very slight hump at around 500 Hz. The high cut is similar to the low mode. The overall level is louder compared to the low mode. Next we have the Torpedo Live from TwoNotes. The resulting curve looks very good. There's a slight low cut starting at around 50 Hz. But there's a hard high cut starting at around 16 kHz. The range is minus 1.5 dB at 20 kHz. that's almost irrelevant for guitar sounds. The last device is the Ironman II from Tone King. The resulting curve looks a bit like my belly when I'm laying on my back. That curve will definitely change your tone in a way you don't want. I can't wait how my guitar tracks will sound by using the Ironman. So here's my rating for the first category. I call it tonal neutrality without cabinet. The clear winner is the Aux Loadbox from Universal Audio. It looks like the studio guys know how to do things right. Place 2 goes to the underdog, the Torpedo Live from TwoNotes. Place 3 goes to the Fryette Powerstation PS2. Place 4 is shared between the Tube Amp Expander and the Suhr Reactive Load. At place 5 we have the AmpCentral from RedSeven. Place 6 goes to the Captor X from TwoNotes. The Ironman II from Tone King is clearly the last place because that curve is far away from a flat line. But wait, that's not the final result, so the rating is not set in stone. The real truth is even more complex. The thing is, each speaker or cabinet has a different reactive load curve. But all load boxes have been tested in silent mode, means without a real cabinet connected. So you may wonder if the results are the same with a cabinet connected to the load boxes. In the upcoming video, we will exactly check that and compare it with this rating. A little spoiler, I can guarantee that the result will be a big surprise. By the way, none of these load boxes is sponsored in any way, so my rating is completely objective and not influenced by any company. I've also tried to get the Capclone IR Plus from Mesa Boogie for testing, but unfortunately I wasn't able to get one. Nowhere. So I'm not quite sure if the device will be produced any longer. That's it for today. Thanks for stopping by. Please like and subscribe so you don't miss anything.